Hello, people. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Hearing you.
All right. I see we are alive and still kicking.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The reason you
All
seem so
right. So
such
we have a fun
oh,
class today.
so before we
Um, I do I did get some good news because when I went to the submission list and looked a couple days ago, I did see a significant amount of persons that seem to have submitted checkpoint number 3, and that is the biggest checkpoint. So I'm glad to see that more than half the class has successfully reached their checkpoint 3. And the reason why that's such good news is because in order for us to do today's activity, you will need your model, right? So I know some of us might still be working on our model. But over the next 3 weeks thereabouts, we are going to be covering some topics that will take you through checkpoint 4 and checkpoint 5 and checkpoint 6. And it's the fun part because it has to do with rendering, right? So let's head on over here to 3DM. All right. So, why does this look so pale? It's an error. There we go. Okay, so we are going to be talking about 3D visualizations. And if you remember, perhaps the very first class, when I asked you guys to pick out some images, and these are some beautiful images that you guys pick out. I asked you guys to pick out your favorite 3D visualization images, right? And we are going to be talking about the topic of architectural visualization. Right. I think out here this is spelled with an S, but it just looks cooler with a Z. So this is what we're going to be dealing with over the next couple weeks, and we're going to be tackling this in different phases, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look on visualization techniques in Revit. So we're going to be looking at visualizations in Revit. And that will be pretty much our first stop. Then we are going to look on the types. I'm gonna use some sticky pads. Yeah, this is nicer. All right. We're gonna look on rendering offline and render real time, right? That first one we're going to look on is visualization in Revit. Let's call it that. So that will be our first stop. Now, even though we're going to be talking about renderings, and I know we love to create these gorgeous rendered images, our topic is really architectural visualization, not 3D renderings, because architectural visualization includes 3D renderings. 3D renderings is only a type of visualization. So if I look back here on, let's take a look on our handout here. So let's head over to the class site. Let's take a look on the schedule to see where we're at. And if we take a look on our handout, which is here, we are now past checkpoint 3, and we are now at checkpoint 4. And checkpoint 4 asks us to generate drawing views, which are architectural visualization. But notice that only one of these views are 3D, is photorealistic rendering. The next view is orthographic. Then we have a perspective section, and then we have an exploded view. So 3D rendering is only one of the views that we are going to generate. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore a little bit of what Revit has to offer in terms of generating some of these views. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a picture here. I'm going to just grab a snapshot. Let's drop this on our mirror board here. And what we're going to do is we are going to explore how we can generate these images. Now, when it comes to generating let me grab this one as well. There we go. All right. Now, when it comes to generating 3D renderings and 3D animations, we are going to be investigating offline and real-time rendering, right? So all of these will come in one kind of package here. And then when we're investigating visualization in Revit, well, that's when we will look on now. How do we get things like exploded views, things like perspective sections, and things like orthographic views? Now, the truth is that maybe some of us already know how to generate these. So most of our experimentation today will not necessarily be about showing you how to generate these, but just kind of exploring what Revit has to offer in terms of different ways to show architecture, right? There is always those beautiful renderings that we can do, and we are going to do some of those. And we're gonna start the process. We're gonna start the prep process from today, but we're gonna start in Revit to look at how we can generate these views. So right away, we are going to be jumping in Revit. So we're gonna put this one side here, and then we're gonna fire up Revit. Okay, so do you guys have your Revit ready? Guys?
So someone said yes.
Somebody said yes. All right, cool. I need you guys to grab your model. All right. So if you have your model, I need you to grab it now. I'm going to grab my model. And some of you may. Right. Some of you may recognize my model because you would have done the tutorials that were created for you so that you could access on demand. All right, just give me 1 second. All right. Now you may recognize this model because this is actually my model here. And I mean, it's not the coolest looking building. Some of you guys really have some awesome looking buildings, and congrats to you. But this is really the simplest version of this building that you should have. So we're going to be looking at a couple things in Revit, right? That has to do with visualization and views. Now, you guys would have already been familiar with your project browser, and I'm going to pull out my project browser here and kind of dock it. Let's dock it over here so that you can see it clearly. All right, you guys are seeing my screen okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so we already know what the project directory does. It kind of does stores the different views that we have, right? But I want to show you an example. Sometimes we use these programs because we want to, let's say, generate really captivating visualization to explain our concepts. and we would quickly jump into Twinmotion or one of these other programs. However, most architectural program can get you quite far just out of the box with what it can produce. Just give this a while so that it can open. It's a little big, so let's give it a little while. All right. Okay. Now, some of you may have seen this already, but what we want to focus on, this is actually a thesis project here. And there are many different plans that are located here. We have some elevations. We have some solar studies. We have lighting diagrams. We have structural diagrams. And you might realize that this is really struggling because this is approximately 22 sheets, 22, 24 by 36 that comes together for this entire presentation. We also have a little bit of detailing that's here. Let's go over here. We also have like a three-dimensional section through the building. And this is an interesting section because this section actually bends a corner, all right, because of the shape of the building, right? So all of these visuals are produced directly from the architectural program, right? This is without Photoshop or going into, you know, like Twinmotion or Lumion. So what I want us to understand is that in order to best communicate what you're trying to show, it may not be necessary that you have to generate photorealistic renderings. Sometimes to tell the story, the images that the architectural program can produce is in some cases good enough. So let's look a little bit at what some of these things can be in Revit. So firstly, everything that has to do with our views are located down here. So if I take a look down here, you will see that, well, the first and most obvious thing is that you can change your graphic display from wireframe to hidden to shaded or to realistic. Then right beside that, you have a detail level, which we're not really going to use now, Then we have our sun path. We can turn shadows on and off. We can render, or we can do things like crop our view, hide our view, and all of these things. Now, before we even talk about rendering, there are some pretty standard 3D visualizations that you can get right out of Revit. So right now we are looking on a shaded view. And sometimes to communicate our ideas, we may need to generate multiple views. Maybe to communicate a particular idea, we need to show the work shaded, but then in another view, we need to show it as hidden line. Then maybe in another view, we need to show a section. So here we're now having this conversation of views, and all of those are found under your 3D views. In my case, I've docked it on the right side here. So you see where it says 3D views. Right now, I only have one 3D view. Now, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be generating a bunch of 3D views. And how we do that is by right-clicking, and then we're going to choose Duplicate View. Now, when you duplicate a 3D view, it's going to ask you, do you want to duplicate or duplicate with detailing? Duplicate with detailing simply means that if you had, for example, did detail notes or annotations on this drawing, it will also duplicate those annotations or notes. Whereas does duplicate, it will duplicate without those annotations. All right. All right, so I'm going to choose to duplicate this drawing. And notice when I do that, you see instantly that I have more than one views. So I have a view called 3D copy because I had duplicate this view down here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this view. And to do that, I'm going to click on it, right click and say rename. And I'm going to call this hidden line axonometric. I'm just going to put AUX. So now I have a 3D view, which is that, and a hidden line axonometric view, which is that. Now, when I go to the hidden line view, for this view, what I want to do is say, all right, for this view, I don't want to show it as shaded, but instead I want to show it as hidden line. So I choose hidden line. And then once I do that, I'm looking on this view in hidden line. And that is my hidden line view. Now, there are other ways that we can generate views. For example, if I'm in my plan view here, and I say to myself that, all right, I want to get a shot of this building. I want to stand right here, and I want to look at this building like that from that corner. Well, another way that you can generate a view is by going to the camera tool, which is under view. So you're going to head over. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It seems that what, I had dropped the connection a while ago.
Yes, sir. I thought it was me though, but it's you this time.
Okay. All right. So you guys are following me thus far?
So until after you created the duplicate view, then we lost it.
Right. Right. So when I duplicated the view, what I did, I renamed it to hidden line axonometric. And let's call it Ox for short. And then I went into that view. And I changed my my visual style to hidden line. So now I have two views. I have a 3D view that is the shaded view, and I have a axonometric view that is a hidden line view, right? Now, I went to my floor plan because I was going to show you guys another ways that you can generate a view. So for example, I'm looking at my plan here, and when I click on, well, right now, as you can see, I have a lot of reference planes because that's what I used when I was modeling this plan. Anybody use reference planes or reference lines when they were modeling?
Sir, we're not
Yes, sir.
seeing the Revit.
Oh, hold on. Oh, what's happening here? Oh, my bad. Yeah, you're seeing it now?
Yes, sir.
Right. So these green lines you're looking on are actually reference lines, reference planes, and reference lines that I used when I was in the process of creating this. And I'm hoping that you guys see how useful it is. It helps you to set up references. And let me tell you something, guys. Like next year when you guys come back to do BIM, I mean, if you can think it, I'm confident you can build it. So for those of you who have really interesting objects or maybe a structure and you realize that you can't find that model anywhere, well, guess what? You guys know how to build stuff in Revit. You know how to extrude and do all of these things. We didn't get super advanced, but we did do a little bit of subtraction, so you should know how to do that as well. And so the idea is that we want to empower you guys to use these things like reference lines, reference tools, to not be limited in the designs that you will come up with, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to view. And when I head over to view, the great thing about Revit is that it is really intuitive in terms of how it is structured. So for example, if I want to generate or do anything that has to do with viewing, what has to do with viewing? Perspective, section, elevation, anything that has to do with viewing is under the view ribbon. Anything that has to do with architecture is under the architecture ribbon. I guess that's like everything, right? So this ribbon here, even if you don't remember where you find that tool again, just ask yourself, what kind of tool is it? And chances are you will find it under the ribbon that you commonsensically come up with. So when I go to view, I'm going to go to 3D views and I'm going to click the little drop down on 3D views and I'm going to click camera. And what that does is that it gives me this little camera icon, and all I need to do is to click, hold, and drag, and then I'm going to get a little camera cone that I can move anywhere I want. So I'm going to say here, because I want to be looking at the building, and I'm going to click once more. And then what Revit will do is generate a perspective view based on that view using the hidden line. So this is yet another way that we can create a view. And notice what it's called. It's called 3D View 1. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to rename this and I'm going to call it hidden line perspective. Right? And can you guys see the difference between this view come on. Revit is just being a little stubborn. There you go. Right. Can you guys see the difference between these two views? What's the difference?
where one is isometric and what is not.
Exactly. So one is perspective and one is axonometric. But both of them are using hidden line. Now, once you have this hidden line view set up, there's a couple of things that you can do to it. So for example, what I'm going to do now is I want to change this view. So I want to maybe take another view looking from that direction. But I also want to keep this view. I don't want to change it. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do the same thing I did a while ago. I'm simply going to right click and say duplicate this view. And I'm going to say duplicate. It doesn't matter if I choose duplicate with detailing or not, because I have no annotations here. So then notice I have one that's called copy one. So I'm going to call this hidden line perspective view from opposite side. Now, how do I manipulate this view? Because when this is one of those tricky things you might find out when you're in Revit and you want to move a view around. Instead, it's like you're moving a sheet on a piece of paper. If you want to move this around, you need to, well, the easiest way to do it is to head over to your steering wheel, which is here. And notice with the steering wheel, there's a little, tiny little drop-down button here. And then there's the big steering wheel here. Now, when you click the big steering wheel, you will get this steering wheel, depending on if it was the last one used. But you might also get one of several types of wheel. For example, the mini object wheel. That's going to look okay, let's look at mini tour wheel. Right. Each of these are going to look different. Full navigation wheel. That is what the full navigation wheel looks like. So in case you're getting a wheel that looks different, I want you to click on the little down arrow and choose full navigation wheel. Now, once you click that, this might feel a little funny because anywhere I move the mouse, it's like it's following me. It takes a little while to get used to it. So, you know. But this navigation wheel now, what this will allow me to do is, for example, while I'm hovering here, I can hover over pan and pan left or right. Or in my case, what I want to do is orbit. So I actually want to orbit this way. And then I want to use the pan tool to carry it back there. Then I'm using the mouse. Well, the mouse wheel will zoom into the page. But it's not really a page, but let's just call it a page. So I would have to use the zoom here in order to go closer. Then I'm going to use the pan again. And then this is what I have. So now, when I'm done with using the steering wheel, I'm going to click this little X here to close it. So then you notice that I have a perspective view here and a perspective view from the opposite side. So as you go along, you realize that you can now build up the different views that you have at your disposal. And now what you can start to do is you can start to do different things with each of these views. So for example, let's look at some of the visual styles that we have at our disposal, right? So we're going to use this perspective view. Now, firstly, notice that you see these lines that are surrounding your view. And these lines represent your boundaries, mainly your print boundaries. So if you go to print, your printer is going to read these lines as if it's the size of a page. Now, you can edit these lines by clicking on it and make them bigger or smaller, doesn't really matter. And you can also hide them. So for example, I could, for example, right click this and say, I want to hide this I want to hide this in view, and I want to hide this element. So now notice that the bounding box that used to be here is now gone because I've hidden it. And if I want to unhide it, then I'm going to look for this little icon. Oops, not that one. This little icon down here. That little light bulb there. And that will show you all hidden objects in purple. So notice that I have not only my frame hidden, but I also have some other stuff hidden as well. All right, let me turn off hidden view. Now, let's explore some other views. Now, when you go to your visual settings here, you have what's called the graphic override tools. That's here. And when you click that, you will get this dialog box that comes up. And sometimes some persons get confused with what exactly this dialog box does. So this basically has all the different ways that you can manipulate how your model is shown. So for example, I can switch between hidden line or shaded or consistent colors, which is the same icon that's at the base. But more importantly, I can come in and I can turn on shadows, and let's see what that looks like. So there is my shadows. I can also turn on ambient shadows. Let's see what that looks like. So let's turn off shadows, apply, and let's turn on ambient shadows. All right. Now, notice that you don't see any change, but if I turn on shadows now, oh, sorry, actually, when I turn on ambient shadows, I need to click apply. Now, did you guys notice anything change when I turn on ambient shadows?
Oh, yes, sir.
What changed?
Sorry, the foundation in the background is making a bit darker.
Right. So, let's take a little look at this. I want to go to my floor plan. Actually, and to just open a whole new Revit, because I'll get confused with so many tabs. But yeah, when I turn on ambient shadows, look on the model closely. I'm going to flip it on and off again. So here we go. Shadows, ambient shadows off, apply. Ambient shadows on, apply. Take a look down this section here. So keep your eyes in this section right here again. So here we go again. Ambient shadow off, apply. Ambient shadows on, and apply. So do you guys see that change?
Yes, sir.
All right. So ambient shadows are kind of like soft shadows, but they're not really soft shadows, but it kind of simulates that. So if I turn on ambient shadows and cast shadows, so let me turn on both of those, you will get something closer to a realistic effect. Now also there's another thing called depth Q, and that is usually grayed out. And we're gonna also take a look on that to see what that does, but we can't edit that right now because depth Q is only used in elevation and section views. And under lighting, we see that we can do things like adjust the sun brightness. So if I max out this sun and click apply. Well, I don't see nothing much here. No, well, this is the sun size. Let's decrease the shadow intensity and apply. Then notice that the shadows get paler, and if I increase the shadow intensity, and whoa, those are like super dark. So sweet spot is somewhere in this region. And then of course there's the ambient light. So the more ambient light you have, the more the darker areas will show. Now in this dialog box, you also have things like gradient. So I could choose a gradient background and say I want to fade from this blue to this white to this gray. Then when I choose apply, let me kind of zoom out here so you can see it. When I choose apply, can you see this background here, guys? I mean, yes, you must can see it. Right, so there are a couple things that I changed with this. Now, if I like how this is, then what I can do is, let's say I don't want to mess this up because I say, hey, I like this combination, I like this view. Well, I can do the same thing again, such as duplicate this view. And maybe I call it hidden line perspective, opposite perspective, BG for background. So width / background. So I'm going to go back to this plan now, and let's experiment some more. So I could turn on consistent colors and then notice what I get here. And I could take it one step further and turn on. So consistent colors, guys, is where all of the colors is just one monochromatic color. I could go to realistic, and the computer is going to just take a little while. But that's what realistic looks like. So you might be looking at this and say, boy, that don't look really real at all. What do you guys think?
No, sir.
Right. So most people don't use the realistic feature. But the plus with the realistic feature is that it will preview materials. Because if you think about it, let's say that I wanted to add some materials, let's say on this base right here, right? Now, if I zoom in here, I notice that when I'm panning around, it doesn't change my perspective view. So that is, I guess you could say that's a plus. And if I go to modify, and here's the trick, guys. If I wanted to add materials to this object, I need to go into the group. So right now this is a group. I grouped all of these for put in, so that I just build it once and copied it. So I need to double click to go inside this group. But then I can't stop there. I need to go into edit in place, as if I'm about to go to edit this object. But I'm not going to edit the size of the object. Instead now, so when I'm gone back into edit in place, I'm going to go to modify, and then I'm going to go here to materials. All right, so this is perhaps maybe the shortest way to add materials. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to get some quick material previews that pop up. All right, and there isn't much to pick from here, unfortunately, but let's add some chrome foundation, right? Now what I do is just select it, and then I hover over a particular face. I don't know if you can see those faces kind of highlighting here. So when I click that face like this, Well, it is actually applied. So I'm going to choose OK and OK to come out of the group. And let me deselect here, not really seeing it. Now, if I switch to shaded view, not seeing it either. Let's go to realistic. Okay, let's go back in here. Come on. It's in place. Right. Let's go back to furniture to materials. Let's get something a bit more realistic, like concrete. Yeah. I'm going to hover and put the concrete here. All right. So now you can kind of see it represented here, right? You guys can see that, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, the thing is, if you look closely on this isn't really concrete. It's not a concrete texture. What it is, it's a hatch texture that's here. So if I put this on hidden line, it's going to show me white with that kind of concrete like symbol. Oops. If I go to shaded, it's going to give me that. If I go to consistent, it's going to do the same thing. And if I go to realistic, what do you notice happens when I switch it to realistic?
Look aged.
Right. So realistic shows you the actual texture. I mean, in terms of the look of the image, it's not like the best. But realistic is the only option you have to preview that texture. All right. Now, let's develop a particular look that we like, right? So we are going to go to shaded. Not shaded. Let's go to let's go to hidden line. Then we are going to, let's say we want to now modify this sun angle that's here. Well, in order to do that, we'd have to go back into the display options. And this is a little bit kind of clunky here now. So when you go here, then under lighting, and then under sun setting, so you click this button here, and it will bring up the sun options, which looks like this. Now, before I change anything here, that is doing the exact same thing as clicking this little sun icon here and choose edit sun settings. All right, both of those take you to the same settings. So I would say to myself that, all right, what do I want to show? Do I want to show a solar study? Or do I want to just show lighting? So I'm just showing lighting, and here's where I can adjust my angle. So you can kind of think of this as if that's like a flat compass there, you are adjusting this angle. And then if this is on the Z-axis, then you're also adjusting that angle. I don't know if that kind of explains it. So for example, let's put this at 40 degrees. Notice that it changes there. $160. Oh, right, can't be that. 80. Apply. So at that, the sun is exactly behind us. So let me put this at 10. The sun is over there. So you get the hang of it after a little bit. So this altitude is how close to the surface of the earth is that angle. So 10 degrees is really close. So that's like a Christmas sun. It's like skimming the horizon. So let's put that back to 30. And then this has to do with your angle from a Z perspective. And don't forget to choose apply. So sometimes you have to kind of click around to find the setting that you want. So let's say I want that. I'm going to choose OK. And let's say that I don't want the shadows to be very harsh. I want the shadows to be just barely enough that you can see it. So I may go into my shadow settings and I may say, okay, I'm going to take down the brightness of my shadow. So it's very pale. And you can play with other settings here, right? So let's change the background. And I'm going to change it from background to sky. So that's what the sky kind of looks like. All right. And choose OK. So now I have two different views in Headline. I have one that looks like this with a particular sun angle, and then one that looks like this. Now, additionally, you can render an image in Revit as well. So now I'm going to duplicate this again. And I'm going to call it not hidden line, but photo realistic presentation. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to view. So remember, everything that has to do with view and rendering is under view. And I'm going to go to render. Now, once you do that, a dialog box will come up. And then essentially you set up some settings. So for example, you might say, okay, let's render this at draw at medium quality. Screen resolution. Sun only, the calculation. And then I'm going to click render. And that's what the rendering looks like. So the rendering looks a little bit more photorealistic. Of course, it could increase the quality and all of that. So now I have three different views. I have this one here, that's a perspective with a background. I have this one that is another background. And I have this first one here. So let's say I want to generate another view. Now, many times when you want to generate a perspective view, a good rule of thumb is to just go to your plan view and use your camera. So under view, and then under 3D view, you got the camera. And I might say I want to generate a view from this angle. Like that. Now, here's the trick. Now, if I want to get back, I need to go now and turn on the sun and set the transparency of the shadows and basically do the whole process over again every time I need to take another view. And this is where visibility graphics and templates come in, right? So for example, your architectural program comes with different templates. So for example, let me go back to my 3D view here. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I have nothing selected. And I'm going to go to view templates that is located here. So when I go to view templates, you get this dialog box and it has built-in templates that Revit has already created for you. So for example, this is showing templates for views and walkthrough. So I can click this and say, show me all templates. So there's a template for architectural plan, 3D, or whatever. So they say, all right then, let me use architectural elevation. I'm going to choose okay. Now what that's going to do is it is going to change all your view settings to the settings that's saved for that template. All right, you guys following me so far? You understand why this changed?
Yes, sir. Just repeat that part again.
Right, what I did, I used a view template. So if I have nothing selected and I go into my options, notice that you see view template here, and by default, it's going to be blank. So what I'm doing now is I can just click on this template name, pick a template. So let me just pick another one here. So let me pick a template for site plans. And every time I click a template, my view will change. Now here is the trick. Let's say that we liked this view right here. We love the blue and then the white model, and we love the contrast. And every view that we set up, we want it to look like this. Well, all we have to do is to turn this view into a template. And to that, it's as easy as going to view and say, under view templates, you say create template from current view. So when I click that now, let's call this favorite hidden line, because I love how this hidden line looks. And it is now saved as a template. So what does that mean? That means that let's go to this view here. For example, this is a rendered view. If I decide that I don't want this view to be rendered, I want it to look just like this view here, then I'm going to have to manually go into all of these settings down here and edit it. But now, because I'm using a view template, so that was a photorealistic render, I can just change this by just swapping the template. So I can go to here and I will just choose load template, and I will load the favorite hidden line template. Oops, that's the wrong one. And then when I do that, all of my view settings that I had changed gets applied to this view. So if you're a person that has many views, maybe you have 20 different views, you don't have to go into every view and set up your camera angle or whatever. You just need to turn it into a template and then apply that template to the view. All right. So this is something that you have to do to practice, guys, or else you will forget it. Trust me, because sometimes I forget it. Now, in addition to this, I'm going to go back to my 3D view here. Let's talk about exploded views. Now, every time you want to generate a new view, it's a good idea to just duplicate the current view that you have. So this view, that's a 3D view. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to call this duplicated view EXP for exploded view. Now, in this exploded view now, I don't want to show my levels. All I want to show is my model. So I can simply right click on this level, go to hide in view and choose hide. I can right click on this level and I can do the same thing. Or I could select all of them and say hide. Now it's still in the project, but it's just not here. All right. Now let's say we wanted this to be an exploded view. Now guys, what you should not do is try to manually explode your building. Meaning, don't select this wall here and then try to use your move tool to move it like that. I mean, it's going to be very chaotic for you to do that, for you to go in and move these individual pegs and everything. No, don't do that. Revit actually has an explode tool, and how it works is all you need to do is select an object. While you're on modify, look very closely for this little icon that is so inconspicuous. That's this little icon here. You just click it once, and once you click it, you will get this little arrowhead, and with this you can move your objects. So let me do that again. I can click on this. I get the little arrowhead and I can move the objects. Let's say I want to do the same thing for this roof here. I mean, you could select more than one objects, but let's say you want to show that this rafter belongs down there, then you want to show this rafter as I exploded and you move it like that. Now, when you go to the other view, so for example, if I go back to my perspective view, then what you notice happen? None of those explodes are showing, which is a good thing, because when I go to my exploded view now, it's still exploded. Now, that's a very important point for you to notice, guys. Did you notice that?
Yes, sir.
So when you use the explode view, you're not really moving the objects, because that would be a super big headache, right? And if you decide that you no longer want to move the objects, well, you can just click on any object and say reset, and it will just jump back to where you exploded it from. But now let's take it a step further. We can combine different things together. So we can say we want an exploded view and notice when I try to change my graphic display settings, it's grayed out. And the reason it's grayed out is because this view is currently running off of a template called site plan. So all I need to do is to choose back that template that I made earlier called favorite hidden line, choose OK, and it will load everything from that favorite hidden line. It will load the background and it will load the shadow angle and everything. Granted, that background not really working out, but you get the idea. So you can really use this to do some awesome things. Now, in addition to this, your 3D view also has a section box. So when you're cutting your perspective section, let's head over to one of the perspective views here. You're going to look for the section box icon. Make sure that you don't have anything selected. You're going to click that, and then you're going to see this box appear around your model. And all you need to do is to resize this box. And anything the box touches will be cut. Now, in addition to cutting, you can also explode. So imagine I can have a view where this is cut, but at the same time, I click on this and I say, I want to explode this up. I want to explode these windows out. And then what you would do, and a lot of persons always forget this before they hand in the work, you need to hide these before you print them. So you don't want to send me work where you have these big boxes on your sheet or whatever, right? So to do that, you just simply click on it, right click, and say hide elements. Click on this, right click, and say hide elements. So now you see how I have used Revit to manipulate different views, turn shadows on and off. And when I do all of that, I can just save all of those settings under a profile and apply that profile to different drawings. Okay, any questions so far? You guys understand how I reached here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, there are other interesting things as well.
Sir.
For example, let me show you a project. That I worked on that has multiple views. Today's the third, right? Yeah. Now, this that I'm showing you is some design drawings, right? And it's a design drawings for residents. So it's not working drawings, it's a design drawing. And one of the key facets of a design drawing is that it is supposed to help the person understand what the design is showing. Now, if you look at my drawing list here, you will see that under 3D views, like I have 3D views to Stone Dog. Can you see that? Tons and tons of views. And then close that up. Let me minimize up everything. So this is what the project looks like. On the floor plans, I have a couple plans. I have location plan and floor plan and all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much what I have at this stage of this project. Now, the important thing I want to show you are the sheets, right? So for example, I have 3D floor plan. And this is showing the 3D floor plan of phase 1 versus the 3D floor plan of phase 2. And these 3D plans, it's just a 3D view that has, you know, the shadow a particular way and certain things hidden are not hidden. Now, if I decide that, oh, I want to get a new 3D view, so I might say, okay, then, let me go to my 3D view here. And then I have to like start from scratch again. I have to say, all right, first thing I need to do is to use a section box and cut down this half here. Maybe half a little more. Then I need to get the right angle. Then I need to go and turn on the sun, put the sun at a particular angle. But instead of doing all of that, all I need to do is go to my view template, and I can just apply a setting that I have for 3D floor plan. So once I do that, everything is set up to look just like how the other 3D floor plans look. So let's go back to some of these sheets. Let's look at this sheet that says cutaways. And if you notice what this is showing, what do you guys think that this sheet is showing? Let me ask you. What is it trying to communicate?
The circulation, sir.
Exactly. So notice that I have the stairs in a kind of a orange color, so that you can kind of know where you are in all these different views, right? Then, for example, there is confusion around what happens to the building in phase 1 versus what happens to the building in phase 2. So then I will have comparative sections. And all of these are just multiple views. I have a view that cut the section here, then another view that cut it further down, and then further down. Right? So when you get to the point where you are having a whole lot of views, it is not efficient for you to go to every single view, turn on shadow, turn on ambient light, turn off background, angle the thing. No, you want to just set things up so that you can just choose a template and apply it to many, right? I know I did do a rendering of this particular project. I believe I have it here. And that is what the rendering looks like. And I also have section views here. So these are different sections throughout the project. Now, all of these are individual 3D views that are just selected and saved. So heading back to the mirror board and us looking at the task that we are supposed to do. You guys are supposed to do a exploded view, a perspective section, and this is the easiest one of all, is the orthographic view. But when you do this orthographic view, I'm expecting that I will see additional things being used, you know, ambient shadows, and make it look as presentable as it can for a hidden line, because there are some things that hidden line shows and a rendering doesn't show. So for example, if you look back on this example I showed here, yes, I have a photorealistic rendering of the project, but this will convey, for example, the mood or the feel. It can also communicate things like the materiality and the landscaping in a realistic way. But for the most part, for design drawings, this is not even working drawings, I need to have things that help to explain what is happening with this building here. And here is another one I have here. And this one is interesting because this one cuts the model and compares the two phases with each other. So when you cut the model here, what do you see? What does it look like? In the next phase, what does it look like? When you cut the model down further in one phase, this is what it looks like. But in this phase, it looks a little different. So you can, you know, in this case, I have used multiple views to communicate the thing that I want to show. So that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to set these 3 views up using your model. There are other interesting things in Revit. For example, we didn't ask you for an elevation view, but when you guys come into BIM next semester, we're going to learn a bit more deeper things about how do you show drawings. But for right now, we're just concentrating on the different types of visualizations. So exploded view and hidden line and perspective section, like these deliverables is what we're going to focus on. Now, where I'm going to leave you today is in terms of being prepared. Now, there are 3 programs that we're going to use and that I'm going to demonstrate. And you guys need to have one of those 3 programs. The first one is Twinmotion, and that's the most recommended one. Do you guys know about Twinmotion?
Yes, sir.
So Twinmotion is about 30 gigs. So set it to download and go to your bed. Right? By the time you wake up, it will finish. So this is Twinmotion. In order to get Twinmotion, you just go to the Twinmotion website. You can just click the download and try button on the right hand side. You can download the free trial, unlimited time period. The only thing you get limited from is that you can't use it on commercial projects, and you can't render images larger than 2K. But other than that, it is completely free, and you can just download the Epic Games launcher. So when you download the games launcher, it will look like this. It's going to look like you're about to play some video games. That's what it's going to look like, right? Because Twinmotion is made by Epic Games. And do you guys know what software Epic Games make? Name me a software that Epic Games make. Anybody?
Fortnite.
Exactly, Fortnite. But there are many more, right? So Epic creates a game engine called Unreal Engine, but it also makes... Say again?
They make Fall Guys again.
Exactly. So the same technology that's going to be used in Twinmotion is the same technology we use to play all of these awesome games, right? So you come here and you download it. It's going to be about 30 gigs. So it's going to take a little while, and then you install it. Now, the second thing I'm going to recommend for those of you who don't want to dive too deep and you want to just kind of stick on the surface in terms of visualizations, well, I'm going to recommend Enscape. So you need to pick one. Guys, so Enscape is super simple. It doesn't have a ton of options, but it has enough to get you going, and it is very beautiful, right? Now you can get a free trial, but the trial is going to last for a limited time period, right? But guess what? You can use your UTech ID and get a 2-year, I think it's 2-year or 1-year license. And remember, when you do it this way, you get the latest version, you get all sorts of fancy features. So rather than downloading it or getting it from a friend, it's totally free. So just sign up as a student though, not with a 14-day trial. So what you need to do to get the free version is they usually hide this in the fine print. You need to find it for education. So you're looking for edu. So here it is, education. You're going to scroll down and you're going to say, get my education license. And you can choose one as a student where you get 24 months free of charge. It can be renewed as long as you want. So technically you can use the software free and the latest version, guys, right? Because the latest version of all kind of fancy stuff like trees and people and content. So you're going to want to get the latest version, right? Now, you have to do a little extra step here. When you choose to get license, you're going to have to fill out this form. Then you're going to get an email, and the email, and you have to fill out this form with your educational email. So you have to use your UTech student email. Then you're going to get a reply in about less than a day, maybe anywhere from 10 minutes to a day. And that email may say that we do not detect this school as an education account. Naturally, it's in Jamaica, so they're not going to know about UTech. But it's going to say, if this is indeed a school, upload evidence to prove it. And you just upload a picture of your UTech ID, and that's it. You will get a license key. All right. Did you guys follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So those are the two that we're going to use. Now I know that is there anybody here that uses Lumion? Is anybody planning to use Lumion?
But I don't think I can run it, sir.
Well, what I'm going to suggest for this class is that we use either Twinmotion or Enscape. And the reason for that is Lumion does not have a education license available free. You still have to pay for it. Right? So that leaves us with all sorts of additional ways in which to install Lumion, which I'm not going to recommend, and it's just more hassle than not, right? So what I'm going to say, guys, is I want you to pick one for next week's class, because next week now we're going to move into photorealism. And is there anybody here that uses, okay, maybe you don't use it. Is there anybody here that is interested in Studio Max? I said the word interested. Not like you want to use it, but like when you hear it, your ears perks up. Say, ooh, Studio Max. Is there anybody that knows?
I always hear it for
hear
like 3D princess. If you use that for that.
Okay. All right, cool. Because usually in 3D modeling class, I usually do a quick demonstration. Not for us. In the past, we used to use Studio Max. You used to be able to choose between if you want to render with 3D Max or you want to render with like, you know, another program. But nowadays, especially for architectural firms, everything is going to be real time. So we're going to talk about real time and offline. And then we're actually going to jump into the model and start to use Lumion or Twinmotion. And I'm going to give you some tips. Just like what I gave you some tips just now, I'll be giving you some tips in using Evermotion and Twinmotion. All right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I take a look on our timeline, checkpoint 4 is where we are at now, and that is due November 20, which is just way, way, way too long. Anyway, at the time when I was setting these deadlines, we didn't get the academic calendar as yet. So now we have gotten the academic calendar. So we know that the semester ends like on the 25th, I believe. I think that is it. Right. So I'm going to be changing the deadline for checkpoint 4 because we can't wait until November 20. It's now November 3rd. So we can't wait until November 20 for you to submit that checkpoint. So this was an estimate before. But we're going to spend by next class, I expect everybody to have generated those 3 images. I mean, it's just so easy, guys. An exploded view, perspective section, and an axonometric is like whew, super easy to do, right? And I think you need to generate 1 view of each. So this is something that you can literally do in class. If you are even following along with me, you can literally do that in class. So next week we're going to work on rendering, and then checkpoint 4 is going to be due the following week. All right, don't worry, I'll remind you again next week. But to be honest, I don't expect anybody to come next week and they haven't finished Explosion, Hidden Line, and the other one, because I mean it's so simple. Okay. And then the final step we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about animation. And I'm going to show you guys how to animate in Twinmotion and how to animate in Enscape.
Question, sorry.
Say again?
Is more than Twinmotion in shutter size?
What about Enscape?
I'm saying if it's small, like just smaller file size than Twinmotion, like for the application side.
Oh yeah, Enscape is really small.
Okay.
I don't remember the size, but it's like, I don't know. It's not even a gig.
Oh, it's mostly offline rendering then.
No, both of these are real-time rendering. As a matter of fact, Revit uses offline rendering, and in the past this assignment did require you to render a picture in Revit, but it no longer does because nobody renders offline anymore. Nobody will render an image in Revit because they can just like use Twinmotion. It's free. You understand? You know. So yeah. So over the next 3 weeks, so by the end of November, you should be done and have your grades and everything. And we are moving on to our studio-based project. All right. Remember, you still have one more assignment to come up, which is a real easy one. It's what I call a passive assignment, because all you're doing is handing in work that you have already created. So yeah. All right, guys.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's
Yeah.
Say again.
No, sir. I would have said yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so that is going to do it for our class today on architectural visualizations in Revit. So we just kind of did a little taste of it. I think you guys have enough now to do the perspective section. This recording will be there, so you can always fall back on it. But if you do it in class, then you don't have it to do after class. All right. I'm going to go back to marking those checkpoint 3 and backtracking a little bit on the ones that I missed before, so you can look out for your grades coming up. And I will see you again next week. All right.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Take care. Enjoy the weekend.